On today's show, Houston Rockets early season, real or fake? Number one offense in the NBA, top 6 defense, best offensive rebounding team, top 5 in free throw rate. Are we buying these numbers? Plus, why Houston might already have their answer for Victor Wembanyama defensively. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Fridays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. On today's show, we're going to play an early season edition of Real or Fake, taking a look at some of the advanced metrics and stats and lineup data for your Houston Rockets through these first 7 games. Are we buying some of these numbers, or do we think they're a little bit inflated because of the early season? Do we think they'll get better, worse? All of that across our first 2 segments. And then a little bit later on in the show, we're going to preview the Rockets Spurs in-season tournament matchup Friday evening, the first of 4 in-season tournament games during the group stage of the tournament bracket, and the much anticipated bout with Victor Wembanyama, and why the Rockets might already have their defensive answer to Wemby. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. And joining us now is your weekly co-host, the host of the B Block podcast and Sports Radio 610's Brandon Scott, who you can track down on IG at B Scott from Hiram Clark. Brandon, are you ready to play some Rockets real or fake now that we're 7 games into the season? They're riding a hot 5-game win streak.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt better, man. I'm ready to play real or fake. I'm ready to talk about this team, man. We're in a good spot. It should be positive vibes. I feel like I'm going to be on the real side because they've been so convincing over the last several games. So let's get into it, man.
All right. So if you've never played real or fake with us here at the show, this is how it works. We're just going to go through a number of different kind of statistics and some early vibes from the season, take a look at some things like the offensive rating, defensive rating, some of the 4-factor statistics, all these different things, even some lineup stuff, maybe some individual metrics for some of the players. And we're just going to talk about whether we think these things are real, like they're going to hold up and stand the test of an 82-game season, or if we think they're fake. And then fake doesn't necessarily inherently mean bad or whatever. It just might mean that, they might not be able to be the number one offense all season long or something like that, right? They might drop a little bit. So we'll get into it. And that's actually a good enough spot to start in, is taking a look at this team offensively, which I don't think anybody had the Rockets pegged as being the number one offense through this early part of the regular season. Brandon, this is better than I think anybody could have imagined them being. They are currently, by a decent margin, the number one offense in the NBA, 122.4 points per 100 possessions right now. Number one offense in the entire NBA. Real or fake? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I got to go fake at least on this one, and not to be, to throw cold water on the idea of stuff being real this early on in the show, this early on in the segment. But this one, look, I think they've got the potential. Like, I don't think it's fake that, like what we've seen so far, just the idea that this is going to be something that they're able to maintain through the entirety of the season. Like, you look up there now, and they're ahead of the Sixers, the Nuggets, the Knicks, the Lakers, the Thunder. I think a couple of those teams, like the Thunder, like the Nuggets, and the Sixers are a little bit of a surprise, I guess, or they were one of the teams that could go either way. But there are other teams that are going to contend for this. So I think that the field is a little bit more crowded than, just the Rockets. But they're going to be really good, like top 5 offense, I think that's real. But number one, I'm going to go fake because I don't think that that's going to last throughout the entirety of the season.
I think I'm right there with you, right? It's just like this offense feels potent, but to play devil's advocate for a moment here, they're number one right now, and it has looked far from perfect. That's the crazy part, right? Like we've seen a number of games already where Kevin Durant has had like these really, dreadfully inefficient games, but because of his sheer gravity, right, the Rockets still walk away with some like double-digit wins, and the offense still looks good because he's being used as kind of the sacrificial lamb, the decoy, whatever, to get other guys involved. He's getting double and triple teamed, 30 feet away from the basket, what have you. I don't think we're going to get like that version of Kevin Durant, right? The inefficient version of Kevin Durant where he's just struggling to get into a rhythm, whatever. Those games are going to be very few and far between. And it doesn't really feel like we've even gotten the best version of him yet. Still feels like they're settling into the offensive identity of playing through Alperen Sengun, using that shin hub offense. Thompson still finding his footing as a primary ball handler. There's still like a lot of room to clean things up offensively. And the fact that they're already and sitting comfortably as the number one offense 7 games into the season, and there's still so much room for improvement, leads me to think that maybe it could be real. And maybe we could, look, we're 10, 15, 20 games from now, and we're like, okay, they're still the number one offense. Like at that point, like, does it become more real? Do we start buying into it as them being the true number one? I don't know. I think I'm with you. I think I'm leaning fake. I'm confident in them finishing top 5 offensively at this point. I don't know if I have the enough confidence to say that they will confidently finish number 1. So I'm right there with you. I'm going to go fake.
Yeah. I would say just real quick to join you on the devil's advocate. I do think everything that you're seeing, like another version of the point that you're making about having not seen the best of them, everything that we have seen from them that's been good offensively does seem to be repeatable. Like there's nothing that looks fake about the success of the offense so far. Now, is there a regression to the mean? Is Tari Eason gonna and maybe we'll get into him at some point, but like, is he gonna hit threes at the clip? And we'll give the number later maybe, but is he gonna hit threes at the clip that he's hitting them now? Like, these are the things to think about. Like, okay, at some point they got to regress to the mean, even though these things that you see or the indicators of them being a really good offense are real.
You beat me to the punch because my next one was going to be 3-point shooting, not for an individual, but as a team. Rockets are the best 3-point shooting team in the NBA right now, 42.7%, just a scorching number from beyond the arc. Real or fake, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm a similar answer to the last one. I think it's realer than maybe we were expecting. Like it's pretty good, and I think they're going to be really good. Kind of to the point I was making about things being repeatable. I think a lot of the shooting that we're seeing is repeatable, except for the one outlier that I was about to mention and will mention now, and that's Tari Eason shooting something like 60% from 3 over the last 5 games or whatever it's been. So like, I'm
he's
not
basically
great
been lights out since his first 2, like the 2 bad games that he had to start the season.
Yeah.
And then it's like he completely flipped the script.
Yeah, I think it's 1 for 5 from 3 in the first 2 games. And then it's like 18 to 29, or I don't know, something to that effect. I could pull it up, but it's basically like 60% from 3 over the last 5 games. I'm not great at math, but I'm going to guess that helps in their overall number, their overall percentage as a team. That's just going to be a wild guess of mine as somebody that did not do great at math. And so I think that's going to come down a little bit. Josh Okogie's been really good. I think they got some guy, Reed Shepherd was good the other night from 3. Jabari, when he's played, I know he only missed that game a few days ago. But yeah, and I think they're going to be a really good 3-point shooting team. Are they going to be this good of a 3-point shooting team? I'm going to call it fake.
All right. I'm with you on the 3-point shooting too. I think that one's definitely a little bit more of that early season sample size theater, whatever, small sample size theater, if you will. And, they'll come back down to earth a little bit, but I do like their recipe so far this season, which is they're not just, there are teams out there that just go with volume of threes. They just try to overwhelm you and bury you with threes. This Rockets team's not taking very many threes at all. In fact, actually, if I go back and I had it pulled up here a second ago, let me swing back to it for a second because I actually meant to mention this. 3-point attempts. Rockets are actually second to last in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game. They're barely attempting over 30 a night right now. The only team attempting fewer threes is the Sacramento Kings, 29.3 per game for the Kings, 30.1 per contest for the Rockets, compared to the number 1 3-point shooting team in the NBA, the Celtics, who are hoisting 47 threes a game. So a 17 attempt difference between the number 1 team in the NBA and the Rockets as the second to last team in the NBA. But because the Rockets are being more selective about their threes. They're taking wide open threes, high quality threes, a lot of those corner threes, which is, one of the most efficient shots in all of basketball. It's working. They're hitting them at a high clip. But I'm with you. I think they'll drop down a little bit, but I have more confidence than I have in years about the Rockets actually finishing as one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. I think they'll probably finish comfortably in the top 10, maybe even in the top 5 3-point shooting when it's all said and done at the end of the season. Let's go back to one more here on the advanced stat side of things. Right now, Rockets are sitting as the 6th best defense in the NBA, allowing 110.1 points per 100 possessions. You think this defense right now, sitting at 6, is real or fake, Brandon? And I will add the caveat. It can be fake in a positive sense that you think it can get better. So you can use that if you want to.
Yeah, I'm tempted to, but I'm going to go ahead and give them some credit for having improved a little bit over the last, basically since the last time we talked a week ago, Jackson. Like we were on here on this podcast lamenting about specifically their transition defense. I had mentioned their 3-point defense, which had some outliers in some cases where the opponent made some tough shots, but there were also a lot of open threes as well. And so we talked about both of those things, and man, look, about a week later, and it's looking a lot better. Like it's singing a different tune about that. So I'll even call it real because it's starting to improve the way I think we all were expecting it to improve, and I think we all think it's going to improve. And so right around about 6, give or take, they could be better than that. They could be slightly worse than that, but a top 6 to 8 defense in the NBA is this Rockets team. I think that's for sure real. I would say.
I'm actually gonna piggyback off that and build one more. I'm gonna hit you with this one. Real or fake? Do they finish the season with a better offense than their defense?
Ooh, I like that one. And I'm glad you said that, because I can't go back real quick to the point that we were making about 3-point shooting. This is how different the team is now. And who was it? It was Amen Thompson who was kind of making this point that everybody on the team is willing to shoot threes except Steven Adams. And then Amen Thompson is he's the only guy other than Steven Adams that's not good at shooting them, but is at least clearly willing to take them for better and or worse. So there is that. Basically, everybody else on the team is awesome at shooting three, or is at least a credible 3-point shooter. And then the 2 guys that are not are awesome, right? They're Steven Adams and Amen Thompson. So I'd point that out. And just to answer your question, I'm going to go with yes. I think it's a top 5 offense, and like easily. And I think it's a top 8 defense. Now, could I be wrong? And they end up being on the higher side of the top 8? Sure, I'll leave room for that. But if I'm going on floor, if you will, I think top 5 is the floor for the offense, and top 8, top 10 is the floor for the defense. Certainly, both could be even better than that.
Coming up, we keep the real or fake train going. We're going to get even deeper into some of the advanced stats. We'll look at the 4 factors, some of the win conditions for the Rockets this season, and more. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the very next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want to get your hands on. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only. You get 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, let's keep our real or fake game going on here at LOR. All right, Brandon, let's get into these four factors here. And the four factors are some of these, advanced stats, essentially, when it boils down to the rebounding, some of the shooting percentages, some of the free throw rate, different things that kind of, control, or some of these win conditions that, paint the picture of generally oftentimes very successful teams in the NBA. And the Rockets are, very well represented across some of these statistics so far this season. Let's get to this one that they were leading the NBA in for a few games. They've since fallen a little bit, but free throw attempt rate. So the rate at which the Rockets are getting to the free throw line, they are currently fourth in the NBA. Only the Magic, Lakers, and Spurs are ahead of them currently. Do you buy this from them? Top four, free throw rate, or free throw attempt rate, I should say. So real or fake here for this Rockets team?
I'm going to go real here. I'm going to go real because I think that they've got guys, like, just to be simple about it, they got guys that are difficult to guard. Like, they're a legitimately difficult to guard team between, like, if you just start with, let's say, Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun, guys that are difficult to guard. And then Amin Thompson, of course, is just like a force of nature. And so I think those three guys are going to be guys who, whether it's now or later or throughout the course of the season, are going to generate a lot of attention and a lot of contact. And so, yeah, I expect those to be guys. And then you got Tari Eason when he's aggressive, kind of like a bulldog out there, who can kind of force the issue as well. So I think they got guys that can draw fouls. Is it going to be this number? I'm not exactly sure, but just to validate what we're seeing so far, I'll go ahead and call it real.
I think I'm with you on real, if only because one of the things, too, that stands out about this team is it's a twofold thing. One, you add a superstar like Kevin Durant, a guy who is very adept at drawing fouls. That certainly helps. A guy that has the gravity that he does has unlocked some easier opportunities offensively, which at the end of the day, when you start generating, holes in a defense because of a given player's gravity, then you get a defense in rotation. You got guys scrambling. And then when you get guys making like mad closeouts or like trying to recover at the last moment to get into position to be able to contest a shot or defend a player, defend a move at the basket, whatever, you're going to get guys in foul trouble because they're not playing like straight up good, like man-to-man defense. They're scrambling, right? And when you're scrambling, you're panicked, you're going to make mistakes. And so I do think this Rockets team has capitalized on that a ton. And just their size, they're just so much bigger and stronger and longer than so many of the other teams in the NBA. Steven Adams by himself has been a gigantic foul magnet just down low because other teams have to send like two guys at him to box him out. Watching other centers like just try to bear hug Steven Adams so that he doesn't get rebounds has been hilarious. Like, it's just a death match down there every time you're trying to box him out. And he draws, at least a couple fouls a game doing that by himself. So I think the free throw attempt rate, I apologize, is real. On the flip side of that, Rockets are number one in the NBA in opponent free throw attempt rate. They're only putting teams at the line 0.228. I forget how the equation works here. Actually, I should have looked this up before I hit record. But I believe it's a percentage of like how many of all your offensive opportunities or something like that. I should have looked this up better.
It's basically opponent's free throw attempted rate. Okay, so it's exactly how that math equation is done, but that's what the official stat is: opponent's free throw attempted rate. So basically, how often the rate at which they're sending their opponents to the free throw line is the simplest way to put it.
There we go. Thank you for cleaning that up for me, Brandon. I appreciate it. But Rockets are number one. So the in putting it in layman's terms, the Rockets are not sending their opponents to the free throw line often at all, right? That's how good they are. They're playing defense without fouling is the way to look at it.
The best in the league at guarding without fouling.
Exactly. And you couple that with being a top team at getting to the free throw line. And that's why the Rockets have the widest disparity right now between how many free throws they're shooting and how few free throws their opponents have been shooting on a night-to-night basis. So for this statistic, Brandon, real or fake? Number one in the NBA.
Yeah, man. It's funny that I'm going to go real here, even though I just, gave room for them to be a top 8 instead of a top 5, let's say, defense. But yeah, I actually like this. I think this is maybe I'm a little biased because I like the stats so much. Like I like this as a fact so much that, I could be hope trafficking a little bit here, but I could see just objectively how they could be really good at guarding without foul just by the sheer size and ability. Like they've got some of the better defenders and guys like, of course, Thompson. Alperen Sengun has improved tremendously. Kevin Durant's defense. Can we take a moment here now that we're on this topic to point out how, like, even when Kevin Durant has struggled at times offense or struggled by Kevin Durant standards, his defense has been excellent so far since he's been a Rocket. I think they got good enough players to continue, good enough defensive players to continue guarding without fouling, even if that means that they look a little sloppy in the zone at times, or if there are some defensive lapses and it's not as good as we necessarily always want it to be. I think the guard without fouling, especially given the size you talk about, I'm glad you mentioned too, Steven Adams. It feels like every other game somebody is attempting to box him out, and it results in like them having to tackle him because they can't box him out. And so they just both end up on the floor, on the ground, because they can't really do anything else with him. Like this, it feels like happens every other game. But yeah, again, to the point, I think that they've got good enough defenders to continue to guard without fouling. There's probably room for them not necessarily be the best in the league, but again, similar to the previous answer, to validate what I've been seeing, I'll call it real.
I'm gonna go like here. I'm gonna say fake, if only because I do think that while the Rockets they got rid of Dillon Brooks, and Dillon Brooks, as good as he was as kind of being the tone setter defensively, the head of the snake at times defensively, he was prone to some silly fouls occasionally, some over aggression on the defensive end, and I do still think that this Rockets team right now, they're doing an excellent job of playing without fouling. I also think that as the season progresses, you're going to get some time. You're going to get, an Ime Udoka led defense is going to get into the trenches with some teams. They're going to have some ugly affairs. They're going to have some like hyper physical battles and whatnot. And so I think it's fake, not because I don't think they're not still going to be pretty good at it. I just don't think they're going to be number one throughout the whole season. I think things are going to get ugly. I think they're too big and physical for them to not get to a point where they're going to be fouling occasionally. But I will give them a lot of credit for where they're at right now. And the fact that they've gone 7 games in and that they've been very disciplined defensively. And look, I would love it more than anything if they could just prove me wrong, right? If they went out there and played all 82 games and they finished the season as the number 1 team in the NBA at not fouling their opponents, I'd be ecstatic if they could pull that off and still maintain a top 5 free throw attempt rate. That is a recipe for a ton of success this season. But I'm going to go fake just because I think it's going to be really hard to maintain that in that number 1 spot, just given this team's identity and what we saw out of them for the past 2 years under Ime Udoka. Is they're going to be a very hyper aggressive physical team, and when you're that physical, it's really hard to not foul at the end of the day. All right, let's go to our next one here, and this one should be a little easy, but offensive rebound percentage, where the Rockets are. They already took it. They actually took a hit. They were hovering at like 44% the other day, and then Steven Adams missed a game finally. They're down to 40.2%, still leading the NBA by a wide margin, by almost 4% over the next best team, which is the Utah Jazz at 36.8. That means, Brandon, it's damn near a coin flip for the Rockets if they miss a shot that they're going to get the rebound and be able to get a second or third chance opportunity, which is absurd. So real or fake on the offensive rebound percentage here?
Man, it is a part of their offensive identity. Like, we understand that offensive rebounds are not play calls or set plays or anything. Like, they're kind of sporadic, kind of depends on where the ball bounces. You need a little bit of luck, but they have proven that they are a skilled and elite offensive rebounding team. And I think obviously that starts with Steven Adams, but it's not just Steven Adams, right? Sengun does a good job of tipping balls in. Of course, Thompson is a force of nature, again, as I mentioned before, as just kind of an athletic freak, as we know. And they got so many guys that just get after. Jabari Smith Jr. is a more physical player this year, noticeably a more physical player this year than he had been in previous years, or than he has been in previous years. Like they just got plenty of guys. Now Capela is probably playing more minutes than people want him to, but there's another candidate to help you get offensive rebounds. They just got so many candidates, starting with the best one to do it, right? So, if you start with Steven Adams and you got other guys that are capable, I think this is a pretty easy one. Like you said, this one's real for sure.
This one feels absolutely real. We don't have to spend much time on this just because it very much feels like the Rockets are going to be the best offensive rebounding team yet again, another year in a row. They're just too big, too strong, too dominant. They've got too many excellent rebounders. That one is a guaranteed real, and I'd be shocked if they weren't the number one team by the end of the season. Last one that we'll get to here, or actually, but there's two more. I apologize, but I'm gonna lump them together. There's effective field goal percentage and then turnover percentage. But I'm gonna lump these two together because the way these four factors work, right, is there's what your team is doing and then what you're allowing other teams to do. So there's like the two sides of each of the four factors. So lumping in the two effective field goal percentage factors here, Rockets are currently sitting at 11th in effective field goal percentage, and then their opponent's effective field goal percentage, they're sitting top 5. They're sitting at 5th right now. So Brandon, real or fake, how do you feel about where they're sitting at in effective field goal percentage on both sides of the bracket?
Yeah, so on their own effective field goal percentage, I'm going to call it fake, but just because I think it is going to get better. Like they're already top 11, and that's a good sign. I'm not complaining about that, but based off of maybe even some of the things we talked about earlier with Kevin Durant not having, I mean, we've got back-to-back games now, and they won them, by the way. But back-to-back games now where Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun both or neither was like necessarily quintessential, vintage Kevin Durant or quintessential Alperen Sengun, right? They kind of and credit to Alperen Sengun for being a player who can have 20 and 16 or whatever it was he had, and you can call it an off night. I don't know if those were the exact numbers, but he had a pretty high double-double, and it, kind of an off night because he didn't shoot the ball well and he turned it over. Kevin Durant, same thing, can have off night but still hit clutch shots for you. I think that these are guys that are going to shoot the ball better, and they've got some guys that, as we've mentioned before, can knock down threes. So I think that the effective field goal percentage of their own is I think that that's going to go up. Now the opponents, so I call that fake, right? Because I think it's going to be the opponents. I think it's about real. It's close. It's roundabout close enough to real to where I can stick with that.
And to put in comparison right now, the Pistons lead the NBA in opponent effective field goal percentage. The Thunder are number 2. Celtics kind of weirdly number 3, even though they've lost so many of their key pieces. Their defense has still been really solid so far this season. Some of that is just luck, like shot making at the end of the day for opponent effective field goal percentage. But some of that does boil down to if you're a good defense, generally you do a decent job of holding teams to more difficult shots, that kind of thing. I think I'm with you on both of those. I do think that the from the Rockets version of their effective field goal percentage, right, the offense for them, I'm torn because I think right now some of the role players for Houston are playing out of their minds. You've got Tari Eason and Josh Okogie shooting absurd numbers from 3, right? Jabari's had a strong start to the season. But I do think because it's being offset, as good as those guys have been, to your point, Sengun and KD, some of the heavy hitters, the big guns for the team, haven't really been themselves quite just yet, at least from an efficiency standpoint, especially KD for sure, because he's a guy who's usually a 50, 40, 90 guy. And he's been far from that to start the season. So I do think that over time, everything will level out to where KD's efficiency will get back to where it usually is. And then I think some of the role players will actually kind of level out. So I actually think I'm going to go with real on their effective field goal percentage. I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of finish hovering right around that kind of, 9, 10, 11-ish spot by the end of the season. So I'm going to go with real on that one. Last one here is the turnover percentage. I'm just going to do the Rockets' actual turnover percentage. They're sitting at 21st in the NBA, 16.3%. And then we knew that this was going to be an area that was going to be a little rough around the edges with the loss of Fred VanVleet. Turnover percentage has been an area where the Rockets have actually thrived the past couple of years with Fred VanVleet under Ime Udoka. The Rockets have done a good job taking care of the basketball. They haven't done a great job taking care of the basketball this season. But despite some of the turnovers and some of the sloppy offense at times, still the number one offense in the NBA. So do we think this is real, fake? How are we feeling about the turnover percentage?
Yeah, I'm going to go with real on that too. And I think it is because of them trying to figure this whole thing out of like who our ball handlers are, Sengun as an offensive hub. So it's unconventional in a lot of ways. And just the way, they got a bunch of different ways that they can attack you now, especially having Kevin Durant, but not having a traditional point guard, or in this case, having a guy that's learning to play NBA point guard. In the case of Amen Thompson, your backup point guard is Reed Shepherd. You're kind of doing this a little bit by committee. I could definitely see them still being, and again, it's credit to them for like having all of these other things, like very few things that we can complain about. And the thing to complain about is, they need a point guard, or they turn the ball over a little bit. But they still put the ball in the basket, which is the name of the game. And then they also are defending better than they were a week ago when we last talked. And now it's starting to look a lot more like what it's supposed to look like. So I do think that this one is real, but I also don't feel like it's one that's going to do the Rockets in.
It feels real, unfortunately, but when you're so good at so many of the other things on the floor, like it kind of doesn't matter. Like that's where, the Rockets had a thin margin for, for, I guess, mistakes in the past couple of years because they were on the come up. They were a young team. They didn't really have room for error. Right. And so one of the areas, one of their win conditions was like, hey, we take really good care of the basketball because we need to value these possessions. Right now, it's like, okay, well, they can afford to have some garbage possessions and turn the ball over a little bit because they're so damn good in so many of the other possessions and they're so dominant in so many other facets of the game. They don't need ball security to be one of their win conditions anymore, which is kind of the evolution of this team, which I don't know if anybody was really expecting this team to suddenly jump off the page the way that they have so far this season. But coming up, I've got one more real or fake that we're going to get to, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the Rockets Spurs in-season tournament matchup. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, you can head over to FanDuel.com. Take a look at the odds-on favorites to make it to the finals this season. The Rockets are slowly creeping up the list. Well, actually, they slid back down a little bit. They're back down to plus 2,000. The Thunder still the favorites to repeat at plus 200. The Nuggets plus 700 right there alongside the Cavaliers. The Knicks at plus 1,200. The Lakers plus 1,300. And the Warriors plus 1,600. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com, where FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So again, head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Look, you and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, because there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Georgia, and even Texas. Look, so far this Rockets season, Alperen Sengun on his points, rebounds, assist projections have been great to me. Honestly, I keep hitting them more on those, and I have not been disappointed so far. Kevin Durant's been great. Amen Thompson's been great. And Prize Picks has been awesome. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, Brandon, one more real or fake that I wanted to throw your way. And this is, we probably should have done a whole episode on this because I got so many different other real or fakes that we could have gotten to. But I want to get to this one because this is maybe my arguably favorite one. And this is not a statistic. This is just like a vibes thing. All right. Real or fake, Josh Okogie has been so impactful in this beginning stint with the Rockets that he is not in danger of losing his role to Dorian Finney-Smith when he's healthy.
Oh, I will call that fake, but I also think that it's a positive, that it ultimately is a positive thing for the Rockets because it will make them deeper. Now they know this is found money to me. Like there's no reason to relegate Dorian Finney-Smith unless he plays his own. Like the reason why Dorian Finney-Smith's role will be relegated will be a Dorian Finney-Smith thing more so if it happens more so than a Josh Okogie thing. I think just take it as found money. And if Dorian Finney-Smith comes back and plays like the player that I think they were expecting to get and the player that I think we're expecting him to be or we're expecting him to be, then his spot will be just fine. I think the added benefit is just going to be to know that Josh Okogie is somebody that can come in and be reliable for you. He can affect the game in the box score. He can also affect the game in some just more functional ways that don't necessarily show up in the box score. And so knowing that you can trust the guy, I think is going to benefit them even if Dorian Finney-Smith does resume that role when he comes back.
I'm going to go real on this one just because,
okay.
and
spicy.
Because, hear me out on this, because when they do, eventually when DFS gets back from rehab and he starts playing, they're going to bring him out. He's probably going to be on like a minutes restriction, right? He's not going to immediately get tossed into the deep end and take over that starting spot for Josh Okogie, right? Josh Okogie's been the Rocket starter. They've won 5 straight games since he entered the starting lineup, right? He gave them that little bit of defensive edge, that point of attack, defensive presence, everything, right? And so I think that ultimately what's going to happen, email bring DFS back. They'll slowly integrate him. And ultimately it's going to be up to DFS to outplay Josh Okogie to then earn that starting spot. And if Okogie keeps playing at the level that he's playing at right now, I don't know if DFS is going to ultimately outplay him. And Ime might hit a point where, like, if it's like another 5 or 10 games and the Rockets are rolling and things look really good with Josh Okogie, why rock the boat, right? Like, you can still play DFS and he can still get a healthy, 20, 25 minutes a night coming off the bench, what have you, and being a reserve. But I don't see why they would suddenly just feel the need to shake things up unless DFS is so easily outplaying Josh Okogie, where if Josh Okogie's 3 ball like falls off a cliff all of a sudden or something, drops back down well below 35%. But if Okogie's shooting, anywhere between 35 and 40% from 3, I mean, he's over 50% right now, but that's not sustainable. So if he keeps it up, I mean, Okogie's a little bit younger, he's a little bit of a better point of attack defender probably at this stage in their respective careers than DFS is. DFS is the vet, though. He's been there. He's had a ton of success playing alongside other star players in his career. So maybe ultimately Ime elects to go with the more veteran hand of Dorian Finney-Smith, but and maybe this is just a little bit of, early season hype for Josh Okogie. He's just been a revelation this season, man. Like, he's been such a great, like, pound for pound value signing. Josh Okogie's got to be like top 5 of like best signings this offseason of just free agent acquisitions because of how impactful and good he's been for this Rockets team on such an insanely cheap vet minimum contract. At least that's my stance on it.
Impact and value is the word. Like, he's had a tremendous impact, and for like what you were expecting, what he makes, all of that, like the value is there. I would caution though a little bit of prisoner of the moment in terms of comparing the two players. Like, you got to remember,
Brandon, I love being a prisoner of the moment. Don't take this from me.
But don't forget, if DFS is either, I don't want to say washed, but rusty or just not ready to be DFS that he was last year, then that's its own case. But if he plays to form, I mean, he was 40+% from 3 last year, and there was some stat about how he guarded all-star players at an elite level. Like, elite, he was elite at guarding elite players, right? And so, Josh Okogie's been fantastic, but if DFS comes back and he's ready to guard elite players at an elite level and is shooting somewhere around 40% from 3, then he will definitely have the spot that they envision for him. But
it's gonna be hard to keep him out of the starting lineup at that point. But it's a good problem to have.
It's such a great problem to have. You know what? I like it here. I like it here a lot. I like where we're at. The things that we're complaining about or even just wrestling with. They're good problems to have.
All right, let's take a look ahead at this Rockets Spurs matchup, the first in-season tournament matchup for the Rockets this year on the road in San Antonio in enemy territory, right down I-10. This is going to be a big matchup, Brandon. Both teams are sitting at 5-2 on the season. Obviously, Spurs having a ton of early season success. Victor Wembanyama looks like the future GOAT with how he's been playing so far. Although the Phoenix Suns might have found a little bit of a recipe for how to slow Wemby down a little bit, which is just put a bunch of small guys on him and just double team the hell out of him. And kind of basically he's getting the Jokic treatment that he got in the playoffs, right? Guard him with a smaller guy and, be physical, foul him and disrupt his rhythm. What are you expecting out of this matchup for the Rockets and trying to contain Victor Wembanyama in this game?
Man, look, I wish I knew how you could tame this guy, man. I don't have no answers for Victor Wembanyama. And I do like that you mentioned what the Suns did. And shout out to them because they did limit the guy. But, man, he is undeniable. I mean, he's just such an anomaly, man. I've never seen anything like the guy. So I don't know what to do with him because I've never seen anything like him. Somebody that's that tall that can dribble and shoot and is quick and I don't understand it, to be honest with you. Every time I watch,
I've got the answer for Wemby, man. And his name we were just talking about it's Josh Okogie. Did you see how Josh Okogie was guarding Jaren Jackson Jr. the other night?
Okay, there you go.
Josh Okogie's about to be the Wemby stopper. Like I'm calling it right now. We're gonna see Josh Okogie put some clamps on Victor Wembanyama. He's gonna have him frustrated and angry. Bro. It's gonna be incredible.
Relax, bro. You're doing a lot.
I am doing a lot. But to be fair, that was the Rockets' strategy in previous years, right? We saw it last season with Dillon Brooks and how Ime Udoka elected to put the smaller player on Wemby because ultimately smaller players, and we saw this in the playoffs with Alex Caruso guarding Nikola Jokic, right? Smaller guys, smaller, good defenders, high-level perimeter defenders get away with more guarding bigger players because they, the apparent size disadvantage, whatever, physicality, all that stuff. The refs let the small guys get away with more. And I do fully believe that we're going to see Ime Udoka park Josh Okogie on Victor Wembanyama because Okogie's going to get away with a lot of physicality on Wemby that that Sengun or Jabari or Adams coming off the bench isn't going to be able to get away with guarding Wemby.
I like the theory. I do like the theory, and I do think that there's something to that. Now, how effective that's going to be remains to be seen. The thing I'll say this is the thing that I'm worried about the matchup. Just kind of looking at how Wemby's played over the last couple of games. Like they've been on the road these last couple of games. You mentioned the Suns game where they seem to have solved the riddle a little bit, and he didn't shoot it great against the Lakers in their most recent game. Like I'm looking at it here. He's 9 for 28 over his last two games that were both on the road. He's coming back home, going against the Rockets. I don't know how much he gets up for the Rockets necessarily, but that to me, I'm expecting a motivated Wemby that wants to get back to those a bounce back and back to those first few games of Wemby that we were seeing where we were like, oh my God, what is happening right now? Could this guy be the MVP now already? And he certainly looked like he was playing that way. I'm not saying that's what he's going to do to the Rockets, but I am saying that he's going to be, I feel like, or at least should be, more motivated more motivated than normal given how his last couple of games have gone. Now, could Josh Okogie, I would love for you to be right. I'd love to come back and just smile about this and be like, you know what, that Jackson Gatlin, man, he has some foresight, man. Josh Okogie, the Wemby stopper. Who knew it? And look, and if he
got a good ring to it,
if he doesn't, I'm not rushing fate on anybody. But whenever it happens, they got to put that on his tombstone. All right, that's got to be some Josh Wemby stopper in quotations Okogie.
Look, on the flip side, the other thing about this matchup that I think is going to be so fascinating is, Wemby is. This massive defensive deterrent unto himself, right? Like he's a rim deterrent. Guys don't want to go near the paint because he swats everything away at the rim. He's the ultimate like one-man defense in the NBA. However, the Rockets are doing an incredible job drawing fouls. Again, we talked about their free throw attempt rate, and they've got this plethora of bigs that they can throw out there, right? I want to see the Rockets try to get Wemby in foul trouble, right? Like Wemby's great. He's 7'4", whatever he's grown to over the summer. Wemby can't handle Steven Adams. He can't handle Alperen Sengun. He can't handle Clint Capela from a physical standpoint, from a muscles standpoint. And that's where the Rockets are going to have their bread and butter in this matchup is they need to out-muscle Victor Wembanyama. You're not going to out-tall Wemby. You're not going to out-long Wemby. Like he's longer and taller than everybody else in the NBA, except for maybe Bol or something, right? Like outside of that, so that's their win condition, I think, is you got to get Wemby in foul trouble. You got to force him to guard Sengun or Adams or whoever down low and put the onus on the officials to see that, hey, Wemby does not have the size or the physicality to actually be able to box these guys out. And if you do that, then Wemby's screwed. He's going to get in foul trouble and he's going to be in trouble sitting over on the bench for portions of the game. And I think that's going to be the Rockets' recipe for success, is ultimately getting Wemby involved in as many offensive actions as possible. In particular, just forcing him to box out against so much of the muscle that the Rockets have in their front court.
Worth pointing out before we get out of here, just to kind of support what you're saying here. We talked about the Rockets being the best team in opponents' free throw attempted rate. So the best in the league at guarding without fouling. For what it's worth, to your point, the Spurs are 18th, right? So they're not horrible, they're not awful, but they're not doing as good of a job as the Rockets, needless to say, as guarding without fouling. So given that fact and given what you're talking about, I think those are things that should work favorably for the Rockets. And it'll be a fun game either way. Like, I expect this to be an exciting matchup between, two historic rivals and certainly how they're built now. Rivals for the foreseeable future.
I'd give a lot of money to see Alperen Sengun drop another 40 piece on Wemby's head too. So that'd be exciting.
Can I ask you? Because I did want to ask. I know we were pressed for time, but I did want to ask you. Do you think that he? Because I got a lot of pushback on social media when I implied that even though Wemby has graduated to some other universe now, that a lot of that is offensively. He's always been kind of this one man defensive system, as you kind of mentioned or indicated, but I still think that Alpi could cook him. I still think he's capable of cooking him on the other end. Maybe it's not 40-something points like it was the rookie year Wemby, but I still think that Alpi could have a good game against Wemby. Am I crazy for that? Is that me looking at it from Rockets rose-colored lenses, or
no?
I feel like that's reasonable.
Not whatsoever. It is reasonable, and here's why: is because Wemby is an incredibly gifted defender in the sense that he guards an area of the floor. Right, he's an incredible rim deterrent, and he's very good still at defending like one-on-one opposing bigs. But where Alpi really thrives, and where we've seen him thrive against a variety of different bigs throughout his career, is he's got the skill and the finesse to go to his like craft and finesse game and get into all the spins, the pirouettes, the incredible footwork. He can do that, right? He has the bag, but he also has the muscle and the physicality, and he does a great job in a given matchup of identifying which one he needs to lean into more. And so against Wemby, it's going to be the physicality, right? Because, Wemby's such a disciplined defender. He's so long, he's so tall, he's got great anticipation as a shot blocker. You're not really going to be able to like out finesse Wemby and like just, get him to get to it. You might have a couple moments of that, but that's not going to be the consistent, like reliable for it. I remember when Alp did drop 40 on Wemby, there were moments where he just like put Wemby in the rim, because he had him like under the rim and would back him down to where he was literally like head under the basket and then couldn't even block the shot because he was, out muscled him. And so I think that one-on-one Alperen Sengun is absolutely more than capable of giving it to Wemby. It might not be a 40 piece, but I'm fully expecting Alp to get up for this matchup to prove that he is the best center in Texas. I'm calling it right now. There it is. All right, we'll end on that note. B. Scott, let me know where to track you down at.
Hey, I like it. At B. Scott from Hiram Clark on Instagram, at Brandon K. Scott on X, and of course the B Block Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out, man. I love the way you ended that, man. Hey, put them on the table. Let's go, man.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thanks so much for checking out the show. Remember, the best way to help us grow the show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.